All right, good morning, everyone. We have the chance to do orchestra this morning, not together, which I would much rather be together, but I still wanted you to have the chance to learn about our third composer for the year. His name is Antonin Dvorak, and I think you'll like what we learn about him today. He was born in, let's look at the year, 1841 in the Czech area, which was also the Empire of Austria. I don't actually understand how the Bohemia, there's lots of words about the area that he was born in, but it's Central and Central Eastern Europe. And so he's considered Czech. He played his first famous piece in Prague. He has a really interesting life. He lived at the same time as our last composer, Brahms. They were actually friends. They studied together. And I have a timeline thing I'd like to show you, so I'm going to try to adjust my camera. This includes all of the artists that we learned about this year, as well as the composers, so that you can see that they were all, with the exception of Rembrandt, who was in the 1600s, and Gainsborough, who was in the 1700s, Beethoven, Brahms, Degas, Monet, and Dvorak were all relatively similar time periods in the 1800s. So to give us a little bit of reference of the art and the music that was happening during that time. This is considered still the Romantic period of the arts. And so if we think about our hand motions where we go down and have a sad face and then up and have a happy face, we know that this period has a lot of emotion in it. The piece we get to listen to today is, he composed all kinds of pieces. He composed symphonies, which we know are meant for a whole orchestra, for horns, brass, and percussion, and strings, and woodwinds. But the piece we get to listen to today is considered a serenade, and it was intended only for strings to play it. He also did a serenade that only woodwinds would play. And so I think it's neat because you're only going to get to hear strings this morning. You're going to hear violins and cellos, and that will help you maybe see even how much variation there can be in one type of instrument. But before we get to listen to his piece, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about that, we're also supposed to focus on the percussion instrument group this morning. And so take a minute and tell your mom or your dad what are some instruments that are in the percussion group or the percussion family. I'm going to drink my coffee while you do that. Okay, if you said drums, you would be right, and there are lots of kinds of drums. If you said piano, you would be right. There's an interesting instrument that's in a lot of the symphonies we've been listening to that I don't know if it's still used in the orchestra, but it used to be. It's called a harpsichord, and it's also in the percussion group. So I have a book here. I wanted to flip through the different percussion sections to show you. Parents, this is one of my favorites. It's called The Story of the Orchestra. And it does a great job of, it has composers. It actually doesn't have Dvorak, but it has lots of other famous composers and what they were known for. But then it also breaks into each instrument family. And so this percussion section talks about all of these instruments and even more, actually, that are often used in orchestra. This shows you an arrangement maybe of the families and the instruments in the orchestra. And so if you notice, kind of the percussion is along the back. I'll just flip through here so you can see some of the different kinds of drums. A xylophone. Percussion means to hit or to press, and so all of the things that fit together here are because you are hitting them with something. Now, this is what I wanted to point out was these keyboard instruments and how different they actually are. This is an organ, this is a regular piano, and this is what's considered a harpsichord. And if we flip to the piano page, we see here that if you hit the keys of a piano, a little hammer hits a string in the back, and that is what makes the noise. On a harpsichord, you hit the same keys or keys that are similar. Say good morning, Levi. But instead of hitting the strings with a little hammer, the strings are actually plucked the way you would pluck the strings on a harp. And so that's why it has a harp in its name, but it's a very, very different sound. So those are percussion instruments. But like I said, we're not even going to hear any percussion instruments today. We are only going to hear strings, and we're going to hear them in a serenade. And a serenade is calming. It actually comes from a Latin word that means to calm. So this is one you definitely get to grab your blankets and stuffed animals for and cuddle up and close your eyes and just listen to the music. There are a couple things I want you to listen for. And so parents, you can go ahead and play the whole 5-minute piece and then maybe ask your children what they heard or what they liked or what they didn't like, and then play it again and see if they noticed different things the second time. So, what was I going to say? Oh, here's what I want you to listen for. It's called Dvorak's Serenade for Strings, the 4th movement, which means this is only a small piece of the song. Just like last week with Miss Carrie and the week before, we only are listening to small pieces. And each movement very much has a different feel and a different theme. This one has what we would consider an A-B-A pattern, where it plays very smoothly at the beginning, and that's the A theme. And then it plays staccato, which means kind of jumpy for a little while. That's the B theme in the middle, and then it goes back to smooth. So if you remember from Tin Whistle, when things are smooth, we call it legato, and when things are choppy, we call it staccato. And so what I want you to listen for in this piece is they're playing their strings and it's very smooth, it's very legato, and then they get to where they're plucking. I'm assuming, maybe they're probably not plucking actually, they're probably just using their bow kind of quick. I wish Miss Carrie could tell me, but I bet they're just making short noises with their bow. But either way, it sounds very different. So listen for A, B, A, legato, staccato, legato. And then but mostly just listen to enjoy it. And if you fall asleep even, that's okay. So take a minute and go grab your things you'd like to cuddle with and come out and we'll start the song.
Mom,
Yes,
I
leave
put
it.
it in my backpack.
Okay, so that's the whole fourth movement that we're listening to this morning. And now if you want to listen to it again, and this time listen for when it crescendos, which is when it starts quiet and it gets really loud, that would be another good thing to listen for. But until we see you next time, thanks for listening to the orchestra part of this morning. Bye.